In this lecture, we'll implement using public methods to get two classes speaking with one another. Let's try to implement this using what we know so far until we hit a bottleneck. Let's go ahead and create a new monobehavior script that we'll call scoreboard. So right-click monobehavior script, and I'll call this scoreboard. Once that's compiled, let's go ahead and create an empty game object that we can attach that class to as a component in our hierarchy. Let's just call this scoreboard and attach our scoreboard class as a component. With that created, let's go ahead and open that up. All I'd like for now is just some sort of integer that increments up when we destroy a ship. So we know we'll need some sort of integer variable that we can keep track of. Let's just call it int score equals, and we'll initialize it at 0 just to reset to 0 at the beginning of every game. Let's create a new method to increase our score that we can use. We'll just call that void increase score. That will take in an int as a parameter that we can use that we can just call amount. And we can use that amount to increase or decrease our score. Now, technically, I'm just never decreasing our score. You could call this something like modify score or update score. If you had some sort of obstacle or bomb, maybe you hit it and it decreased your score. For now, I'll just call this increase score. Every single time we want to fire this method, let's go ahead and take score and add our score to it. So score plus amount that we got as a parameter in our increase score method. The shorthand to have this exact same result, but slightly different syntax, is just to slide this plus sign right before the equals and then just add amount to it. So score plus equals amount, and that will give the exact same result, always taking what the current value of score is and adding amount to it. Lastly, for now, let's just go ahead and log that to our console. So debug.log score. Here's one of the problems we're running into. I want to call this method every single time one of our enemy spaceships is destroyed. Throughout this course, Rick and I have both chatted about encapsulating our code. You can kind of think of it like putting each individual class or method in its own individual capsule on an as-needed basis. Different parts of your code have a need-to-know basis level of access. In other words, not everything needs to talk to everything all the time. Generally speaking, it's a good idea to keep things as private or as locally scoped as possible until you need to promote it to others that need to chat with it. When you're creating two different classes, it'll be up to you as the software developer to decide, do my two classes need to share data or statements with one another? If we take a moment and reflect back on our solid programming principles, O in solid is representing keeping things open and closed. According to this principle, software entities, or more specifically in Unity, things like classes or functions, should be open for extension but closed for modification. That basically means that you should be able to add new functionality without changing existing code. It'll help you maintain stability while extending the capabilities of the code. And a good example of this is our scoreboard wanting to communicate with our enemy class. We want our scoreboard to manage how our score is created and modified, but we'd like our enemy class to be able to communicate with our scoreboard class and use some of the methods inside. The way we gain access to one method from another class is by changing the access modifier. Previously, we've only been comfortable using the private access modifier for methods, and you would not be able to access it with this syntax here using the dot operator. Very similar to going inside a specific component and accessing its properties inside of a component, we can do the same by using the dot operator or this dot syntax inside of another class as long as we have a reference to it. On the other hand, if a method is public, you will then be able to gain access to it using that same syntax. So you should be pretty familiar with what a basic function looks like, but I did just want to pull this up to let you know there are other access modifiers other than just public and private. While we're not going to get into it inside of this course, just know for now there are other access modifiers, things like internal or protected, once you start to learn how to inherit from other classes and the like. When creating a method, you can also have a specific return type. We've done a lot of return types of void, basically returning nothing through that specific method, but you can return all the basic data types, things like a bool or an integer, a string, or whatever else that comes to mind, as well as even custom classes. For example, if you needed to return a specific enemy that you've created, you can create this return type to do so. You'll have the method name that you can call it whatever you'd like it to do. However, being as explicit as possible with basically what it does without getting too confusing is generally a good idea. And inside these parentheses, you can create different parameters that you'd like to use with inside of this method that can be passed through as arguments when you call the method. With that newfound knowledge, let's go implement that into our scoreboard. I'm going to make this look real easy. Bada bing, bada boom, public. Yes, we've nailed it. After all of that information, it really is just about that easy. Now all we need to do is in our enemy class, grab a reference to the scoreboard and then use this method directly. So let's head back into our enemy class and get this reference. There's a lot of different ways to get references inside of Unity. We're most familiar with serialized fields, just dragging that reference directly into the inspector. However, in this case, that's probably not the best practice. A scoreboard at the moment is a mono behavior attached to a game object in our scene. Well, on our enemies, you have a bunch of different enemy prefabs, and from scene to scene, that might not necessarily persist. You might actually even want to instantiate enemies at runtime, and they're not going to be able to spawn in with a serialized field reference. So in that case, it can be a good idea to get that reference some other way. Again, there's multiple ways to do that, but there's a couple different relatively beginner-friendly ways to go about doing that. But for now, I'm just actually going to search our project for this type scoreboard. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Let's go ahead and create a scoreboard that we'll just call scoreboard, and then create a reference to that in start. So let's go ahead and create a start method. Inside of start, let's go ahead and grab our scoreboard that we just created, and we'll set that equal to find first object by type. What type are we looking for? Scoreboard, and then open and close parentheses. This will go through our entire project and find the first object by type of scoreboard and then set our reference scoreboard to that. We know there's only ever going to be one scoreboard in our scene, so as soon as it finds that scoreboard, it'll go ahead and stop looking for other references. The way that I just worded it, going through your entire project and finding the scoreboard type, that's what's referred to as pretty expensive computationally, meaning that the CPU is going to have to work relatively hard to do something like this. Doing it once at the beginning of each mono behavior enemy class is totally fine. You could even have hundreds of different enemies in your scene, and you're probably not going to hit much of a bottleneck on your CPU. However, you would not want to have hundreds of enemies firing find first object by type in update, for example. Then your computer's probably going to crash. Now, it's worth mentioning find first object by type. There's a few different ways to actually look this up. For a long time, Unity actually called it find object of type, I believe. You can actually see that it's crossed out here, and that's just because it's deprecated. You can see that it's not actually a red squiggly line, it's an orange squiggly line, just giving us a warning. This actually would work. However, you can actually see here that it's been deprecated, and they're no longer recommending to use this built-in Unity method. You can also do things like find objects with an S, and instead of just returning a single scoreboard, it would return an array of scoreboard. So if you were to change this to scoreboard array, voila, it would return however many scoreboard references it could find in your scene. The new syntax for that is a little bit odd, in my opinion. We'll save that for another day. For now, let's just go ahead and change that back to find first object by type, and we're set to go. Now that we have a reference to our scoreboard, well, easy peasy, we can scroll down to process hit, go into scoreboard, dot, and then what did we call it? Something score, increase score, and then all we need to do is just pass through an integer as an argument. So let's go ahead and create that as a serialized field up top, so each individual one of our enemies has its own different score value when it's destroyed. I'll go ahead and create that as a serialized field as an int, and we can just call it something like score value and set it to say something like 10 by default. Seems to make sense to me. Scrolling back down, we can just call scoreboard.increase score and pass through our score value as an argument. Let's go try that out back in Unity. So we have more than one spaceship to shoot. I'm going to head and reactivate all of these in the inspector. And instead of just modifying the property here directly, I'd actually like to make sure I change the prefab so each individual enemy prefab for the rest of this game is actually set up correctly. So let's go into our prefabs folder. Ships, and we'll just give them each some arbitrary values. I'm not going to think about it too much for now. I'll just give things that have higher hit points a higher score value. I'll give my beetle, say something like 100, big boy. Our butterfly, something like 50. Our grasshopper should probably be the smallest. We can leave that at, let's actually even shrink that down to 5, not give you a lot of points. Our moth, let's just keep that at something like 15. And our wasp, we can also change that to 15 as well. Let's go ahead and give our game a play and see if we've got that debugging to the console correctly over here in our bottom left. We can keep our eye on that over there. We've still got our test spaceship floating off in the distance. And there you go. We've got our score properly being incremented. However, I could have sworn I turned off my collision handler in my player ship. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. I am confused. Ah, yes, bit of a weird issue. I actually just spent 10 or 15 minutes trying to debug what was going on with our collision handler. And after a bit of research, I'm reminded that even if you disable a specific component that has a custom class attached to it, things like onTriggerEnter or onCollisionEnter will actually still fire if they have an active collider to it. So we can actually even just do a quick test to show you what I mean. If you create a start method and just do something like debug.log start, just so we can see that the start method is actually not firing on our collision handler class, but you do something like debug.log on trigger enter. If you actually come back into Unity, you'll see that this will actually still work because it's inside of on trigger enter, but start actually won't. After a little bit of research, the reasoning they've set it up that way is because they want an easy way to basically make game objects come alive or basically reactivate them if needed, using onTriggerEnter or onCollisionEnter. Kind of an interesting choice by Unity, something that I actually don't run into very often. Let's head back into Unity and give that a test. Okay, blow up our game view. Keep your eye over here in our bottom left to see our console. You can see you don't get a console log for start. However, if I was to actually just crash into our Karain, the onTriggerEnter function will still fire. So with that newfound knowledge, let's go into our player ship and actually disable and make our box collider inactive as well. And now that our box collider is inactive, you actually don't really need your collision handler to be inactive. Let's just go ahead and reactivate that in our inspector. Make sure we can actually destroy ships and get our score incrementing as well. You can actually see that start little debug.log fired. You actually should not be able to run into the terrain now. Good, gone on right through. And you should see your score properly being updated in your console. Great, that's all I wanted to cover for now. Let's just go ahead and get rid of these debug.log statements before we forget. When you're ready to move on, we'll get our score properly being displayed on our UI canvas.